Behind the forbidding facade of the Bundestag lurks a German politician with a reputation in scale with the building.
An der Stärke der deutschen Wirtschaft.
Finance Minister for 8 years, the man who on this stage championed German leadership of the Eurozone and by extension of the EU as a whole.
Europe depends on the strength of the German economy. The solidarity of Germans is clear. We will pursue policies that ensure that Germany remains an anchor of stability in Europe and a motor of European growth.
That was during the Greek debt crisis, when Schäuble was Merkel's tough cop, the architect of austerity, and cordially disliked for it by the Greek government.
We agreed to disagree. We didn't even agree to disagree from where I'm standing.
Wolfgang Schäuble is now the elder statesman of German politics. He's become president of this parliament after 40 years at the forefront of national life, a time in which he came within a whisker of being the nation's leader.
The Interior Minister was addressing a political meeting in his Black Forest constituency. His attacker pulled a revolver and shot him twice.
His career and his life nearly ended with an assassination attempt 28 years ago. Shot in the head and spine, the attack left him in a wheelchair. But it didn't stop his political rise, and by the end of the decade he'd succeeded Helmut Kohl as party leader. But 18 years ago he was ousted after a corruption scandal. He was politically reborn under Angela Merkel, becoming her number 2 in charge of the German economy. An exponent of prudence and austerity, he was deferred to by many counterparts across Europe. He made maximum use of the leverage that underwriting the euro gave Germany and him.
Having stepped back from frontline politics and with the vantage point in the Bundestag, he can now survey the new challenges to Europe, from Brexit to immigration to the possibility of a new Eurozone crisis touched off by Italy. And he can speak frankly, unbound by cabinet discipline. Let's start on Brexit. Do you think Theresa May can actually successfully manage this?
I hope so. I know it's difficult, but we have to respect the decision of the British people, and we trust in British government, and so we hope that she can.
We're a couple of years after the referendum. Did you think we'd be further along by this point?
I don't know, but I have always had the understanding that a Brexit would be very difficult to be managed and to be delivered. Therefore, and even the negotiations prove this. Therefore, I remain in some way dreaming that Brexit will not happen. But I know it's not the reality from today. But if you ask me for some years in the future is always open. Let's hope.
But in terms of what you, the 27, the rest of Europe, have to think...
The small rest of Europe.
Exactly.
The unimportant rest of Europe.
Is it wise in this situation to allow more time for Britain to reach...
If UK would ask for more time, I think the small remaining unimportant rest of Europe will be ready to agree on such a British demand. But it is once again, it's a matter which has been decided in UK.
Do you think Brexit will happen?
If you ask my personal dream, I hope no. But it's a reality. We have to accept the decision of the British people.
Let's talk about Italy. You're known as the stalwart defender of the single currency, the euro, particularly when the Greek crisis happened, the Greek debt crisis. Does Italy threaten a new Eurozone crisis? Just waiving a big part of their debt is what they're talking about.
It's always fine. Any debtor is happy for waiving of debts, but creditors are not. And the problem is for the future. How will you get new creditors if you don't stick to your debts? That's the problem. It's a problem of Italy, and it must be solved in Italy. And Europe will, and Germany will be as helpful as possible, as we did in the past.
When we look at the politics in Italy, or indeed UK, Poland, Hungary, what's been the role of immigration in creating the current political environment that we see?
I think today, in these very days, the management of migration is one of the biggest global problems for the Western world. If we want to make sure that the values of the achievements of Europe, democracy, parliament in UK begin, then the grand revolutions in the United States, the late 18th century, and then the French Revolution, all these things, human rights and liberty, democracy, rule of law, solidarity, and equality. If we will stick to our values, we have to find better solutions for the globalized world in this very century. That is the real challenge.
And from what you say, you would rank migration as a bigger problem for Europe than Eurozone, Brexit, some of these other challenges we've talked about.
Yes. Actually, the biggest problem is migration. The Eurozone, look, we have been more successful than most people expected in managing the Euro crisis in the last 8-9 years. And we will continue. And the Brexit, as I have already mentioned, we will do whatever we can to, whatever will be the final decision, to have the best and closest relations with UK as possible. Therefore, it's doable.
Last question, just bringing together all these themes we've been talking about. Do you feel for Europe, in terms of its external frontier, that if fortress Europe isn't maintained, populist parties could consume? No.
If you understand, if the self-understanding of Europe would be a fortress, you shouldn't continue to discuss on European values. We have to manage it in a different way in this 21st century. But to fall back in the position of fortress would be the end of European self-understanding. That's not my Europe.
Thank you very much.